What is it?
It's the community review.
Community review.
It's the community review. Would it be a Horror Nights Gauntlet review if it wasn't like 9 months late? Praise Samhain and happy Halloween. My name is Dakota.
I'm Lauren.
And welcome to the Horror Nights Gauntlet HHN 31 Community Review.
So we're going over the results of all of the votes that you guys sent in as to what your favorite parts of Horror Nights 31 were this year.
Yeah. And then we did want to thank you guys, those of you who did vote and who did participate both in the hype episode and in this review episode. We want to thank you guys so much for doing that and for being so very patient, waiting for the episode to drop. It's been a weird year. It's been a weird one. But, you know, it's an interesting turn of events. What was expected versus what was arrived at, which is why we do this, you know, is to see kind of expectations versus reality, see what the biggest surprises were, see what the biggest disappointments were. And I think it's going to kind of be fun to unpack this episode. We'll be going through it, all 17 Halloween Horror Nights 31 attractions. So that's all 10 houses, all 5 scare zones, and both of the shows. We are not going to talk about food and drink. We did a drink episode. The food was good for the most part. How did you feel about Halloween Horror Nights 31, Lauren? Overall,
I liked it. I definitely think I was more excited than what I got, but I did still really have a lot of fun along the way.
I would agree. I definitely feel like I was more hyped for this. Like, I had a lot of hype going into 30, and then I feel like 30, you know, I don't know that it really lived up to my expectations. And I feel like I kind of had the same experience with 31, where I was very hyped going in, and I don't know that it lived up to my expectations either, but maybe I was overhyped. Maybe there was still that like layer of like COVID
bullshit.
Yeah.
I will say I do think overall I think I liked 31 better than 30 just because we did go away from like, you know, the plastic in the houses, and I think that helped bring that feeling back. So hopefully this year will be even better. We'll just keep going, getting stronger.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's weird because it's like I feel like my top 5 houses, I'm like, loved these. These were perfection. And then like my bottom 5, I'm like kind of like, whatever. I don't know that there's, I feel like the things I loved, I really loved, and the things I didn't love, I just didn't even really care about, which is a weird emotion to have about it, but I guess it's valid.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the streets, I loved that everything was very connected aesthetically. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that I actually loved the streets. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I also didn't love the streets, but I feel like that actually comes down to like the park loop. I really just didn't enjoy the park loop, and I felt like that disconnected me from the streets. But just walking around the event, like being outside, that's like a lot of your time.
Yeah, and it's so subjective. Obviously,
yeah.
Like if you like Punkabilly, like one of the girls in our group loved the soundtrack and like cool. It just, you know, I think we just both have similar tastes in music in that regard. You know, I loved that the streets were themed to 31, to Halloween. I loved that all of that to me, I feel like we haven't had that kind of like cohesiveness in a decade.
Yeah.
Like in a really long time. So I loved that about it. And I don't want to put the thought out there that I didn't. I don't know, there's something about it. Like a lot of the zones are just kind of like stuff we've seen before. And in that regard, it's like, you know, well, in a lot of cases, we've seen it before and better. So, but we'll get into that. But I mean, overall, it's a good year, and I liked this year better than 30.
Yes, me too.
So, but let's enough talking about hypotheticals and vagaries. Let's just dive in with number 17. So like we said, we are ranking what the community voted on. What you guys voted was number 17, the worst attraction at Halloween Horror Nights 31.
The one you liked the least.
The one you liked least, but I would say it's So this was number 17. This was a scare zone, and it ranked obviously number 5 of the scare zones. This was Horrors of Halloween.
The Pumpkin Lord, the spirit of Halloween, has taken over this year's event. Summoning hordes of fiendish creatures, terror has taken root.
Where did this rank for you?
For me, this was number 16.
This was also number 16 for me. Which sucks because I didn't want it to be. I was excited.
I was not as excited for this zone, I don't think. Oh, I had it at 12. We all had it at 12 last time.
We all had it at 12. Yeah, wow. So it dropped. It didn't drop a ton, but it dropped. I was excited because I was like, a Pumpkin Lord scare zone.
Yes, I was excited for the Pumpkin Lord, and the Pumpkin Lord, to me, was the best part of this zone. But it's also just the location of that zone is never that great to, like, experience. You just are walking through and that's it. You don't have, like, the ability to kind of, like, hang out in that zone. And I think that always kind of hurts that area.
But I still liked it more than 30 Years, 30 Fears, but not as much as an arcade.
Fair, yeah.
But I liked that, much like an arcade, and I guess 30 Years, 30 Fears, it felt like it was the thesis zone. It's just, it felt understaffed. It felt too short. It always feels too short on Production Central. And I guess I wanted to see more of the characters that were dispersed throughout the land, throughout the park.
Because I know that they had, like, little bits that were from each of the zones, but I wanted to see more actual characters from those other zones in that as, like, a wrap-up finale.
I don't like the trusses.
Yeah.
I really don't like it. If you're not going to have someone swinging above us, like the flying monkeys, I don't need it. I think it's cool to see the classic Halloween Horror Nights neon sign. Like, it was a cool throwback for 30, but, like, 31, like, let it have its own identity. And I thought the red really clashed with all the green and orange. Like, you should have changed the color on the sign, make it orange.
I agree with that, actually.
I get the idea. They wanted to recreate the tunnel, the vortex that went into Wicked Growth at 30, but on a larger scale. But I don't think that there was enough volume of pumpkins because of the metal trusses. So I feel like that also added to this factor of, like, sparseness to this zone, that, like, it felt under decorated, which is unfair because it had these cool, like, set pieces on the street, but then you had this, like, big rectangle box around you of pumpkins that just didn't really deliver the same kind of aesthetic grandeur that I think it was intended to. And then, I mean, you know, we're online, we see what you guys say about them too. I don't know if you saw, but, like, people hated the Pumpkin Lord this year. Like, a lot of people did not like the Pumpkin Lord. So I'm not surprised this is number 17 for a lot of people because they didn't like the farting and the burping. And I didn't really mind. Yeah. I think a lot of it may have also been a little bit of homophobia because the Pumpkin Lord and his sassy little gay hands, I liked all of that. I thought he was fun, and I thought the cast members who were doing it were really serving, and I liked his redesign. The farting and burping was gross. A lot of people were like, they ruined the Pumpkin Lord. And it's like, but he was farting and burping in the house, too.
Like, got, like, a gust of air with it in the house.
Yeah, like, there was all the burps and fart sounds in the house, too. They weren't as prominent, but, like, he was gross in the house. I don't know. I don't think they ruined the Pumpkin Lord. I quite liked him a lot. I really loved how sassy he was.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that was the best part of that zone. So number 16 was Halloween Nightmare Fuel Wildfire.
This was number 2 of the shows. The show that sparked a firestorm last year is ablaze with a new nightmare. The pyro and aerial performers are back to reignite your fears. Where was this for you?
For me, this was last. This was number 17.
Oh, this was number 13 for me. But a lot of my stuff on the latter half of the list for this year I wasn't that crazy about.
For me, my problem with it is that it was just the same show. Like, a couple new acts thrown in there, but like the same storyline really just took it away from me.
I don't want to compare it to the dancing troupe that shall not be named. I think the fire is a cool thing. I kind of wish that, it doesn't need the fire. Like, the dancing is the coolest thing about these shows, in my opinion. And the storytelling. And that's what the first version of Nightmare Fuel had. So I think it was fair to be a little disappointed. And if it is presumably coming back this year, I really hope it's coming back with, like,
a different storyline,
a new story, new aesthetic. Like, I would say lose the bondage, go a completely different visual direction. Like, you know, like, I mean, you can still do the sexy outfits, but, like, We're getting
more gay.
More gay. I think that's kind of what I wanted from Nightmare Fuel for 31 was like Halloween. You know, like I wanted to see. I just wanted it to feel like a different show, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely wanted it to be a different show, and it wasn't.
It's not a bad show. Like that is worth saying.
If you hadn't seen the show prior, it was a fantastic show.
It's still a good show. Like I feel like it's worth reiterating. It is a good show.
And like I said, like I will always see the shows at least once, but it was definitely just like a one and done. Don't need to see it again because I saw it like a couple times last year, and I'm like, they didn't change enough for me to be like, ooh, let's see what new and exciting things I'm gonna notice tonight.
So, you know, it's kind of a bummer, but more gay. So, coming in at number 15 is another show. Ghoulish, A Halloween Tale, the only other show.
On a Halloween night, a ghost story becomes reality as you go beyond the grave in the spectacularly spooky show on Universal Studios Lagoon.
So, for the crowd, this was number 15. For me, this was a bit higher. It was still only one step higher than Nightmare Fuel for me. This was number 12.
I had this at 14.
14, yeah.
I had it last originally, I think because I had been so disappointed by the...
You weren't crazy about 2019's marathon either, though, were you?
I liked it. It's just, I don't know. It was a lot of fun because you had Ghostbusters, you had Killer Clowns. Like, it was a fun time. And I do love, like, I love a party vibe. I will continue to say that.
29's marathon, I listen to it and I will just throw it on randomly when I'm feeling nostalgic. And
we're getting ready to film this show.
Yeah, getting ready to film. To be honest, the music loop for 29, we literally, when we get ready for this show, we listen to the 29 loop because we like it so much. It's good. I liked it so much better than Marathon at 30.
Same.
I did not like Marathon at 30.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
But this is so weird. The things I loved about Marathon the first time was the way that it incorporated like the music of the various IPs that were there that year, but like in these cool remixes. And this time, I thought The Weeknd had no place in that show.
Oh yeah,
like it was like it kind of like completely took me out of what was a really cute Halloween experience.
The show is called The Halloween Tale, and I don't think that The Weeknd fit in that point.
This is so weird, but if there had just been like a different remix of a Weeknd song in it, like if they had done maybe a Punkabilly remix of a Weeknd song, I feel like that would have maybe taken it there for me, where I would have been like, it would have felt cohesive and it would have felt like a singular kind of piece of art. But instead it just kind of felt like, okay, well, we paid for the license, so here he is.
And it's right next to the Weeknd bar that they had. Like, it definitely I understand, but like
when they announced The Weeknd, I thought that was gonna color the music of the whole event.
I wish it had.
And I do too.
Because like to go into the music still a little bit more, because you also have like Halloween, which is also very like synth.
Yes.
And, like, we could have had more.
We've had so much John Carpenter at the event in the past, and Carpenter just sounds so Horror Nights, and I'm sorry, but like synthwave to me just feels very Horror Nights. And then you have this problem of like The Weeknd's music is so 80s synthwave, synth pop, and sounds so similar to like 28, 29, like that era of Horror Nights. And I think like there's just like this like cognitive dissonance of these two aesthetics that are just like they don't mesh.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's too bad, because it's like this show I would say is complementary to the entire event, right? Like this is, if Horrors of Halloween is the thesis scare zone, this was very much the thesis show. This is like emblematic of the theme of this season, Halloween classic, 31 Halloween. That's not a knock on this show though. It's just it's a weird mix, because it's like I think the show works so perfectly for what the event is until The Weeknd shows up in it.
It's just like another one of those things that like had that disconnect with me with like the streets and this. It just like didn't all kind of come together the way I was anticipating it.
And
to.
it was so close. Music is it's a hot topic, but Ghoulish, I want to love it more than I do.
Coming in at number 14 was Conjure the Dark, which was the number 4 for the scare zones.
On the first All Hallows Eve, an evil sorceress called forth monstrosities from dark dimensions. Now your blood will fuel them. So this was 14 in the community ranking. This was number 6 for me, and it was number 1 for my scare zones.
Wow. So I had this one at number 15 personally.
I'm not surprised. It seems like a very mixed feelings on this zone, but for me, I really liked it. It was the one zone this year, honestly, that felt unique. Every other zone, I feel like I've seen it before at the event. This one, I felt like, wow, we've got there's this classic kind of cult aesthetic, but also this bondage aesthetic. We've got demons, we've got ancient, Celtic, Gaelic, Scandinavian kind of mythology kind of vibe going on. I get what it was going for, and I guess I liked that about it. And it was an aesthetic I don't feel like we've seen, where we've seen scarecrows, we've seen trick-or-treaters, we've seen pumpkin people, we've seen ghosts in graveyards. This felt very oh, what a different take on witchcraft. I really liked it.
Yeah, I would say the music choice was a little weird. I felt like some of the characters were kind of disjointed and didn't all kind of meld together.
I liked them.
I didn't dislike them. I just felt a little bit of a disconnect, how you feel about a different zone that we'll get to. I don't know. I don't know what it was about the zone. I didn't love it. Maybe it's because I didn't spend enough time in it. But we kind of blew through the zone pretty quickly a lot of the times that we went. So
I mean, it was in San Francisco. And I think the San Francisco zones would be helped so much if they would just extend to the entrance of Fast and Furious. If they were just longer. Because the San Francisco scare zones are always just so compact and tiny. And they want to squeeze all these big set pieces into them. And then by the time you're in it, you're out of it. And you're just it's over. What?
But I will say that zone this year didn't feel as crowded as it normally does.
And I think they learned some lessons.
It definitely felt like it had more space. I just feel like our group didn't spend a lot of time there. Also, Rob Zombie was also very tight.
Oh yeah, Rob Zombie was tight too, but
I enjoyed it.
So much time in Rob Zombie. But I don't know. I liked that Midsommar kind of thing it had going. I liked the dead people hanging from the big stone tablets, and I liked the demons. I liked the kind of story it was telling. I really only had one complaint about it. I just didn't like the costume for the sorceress. She looked like Daphne from Scooby-Doo in a bad Halloween wig. I had one real note for the costuming for her. There was so much cohesiveness going on with the theming and with the writing and the planning of 31. That witch, the sorceress, can you imagine that aha moment that you get watching an MCU film if you saw her and she was the witch from the finale of Spirits of the Coven?
That'd be great.
I don't know, it just seems very obvious to me. It just seems very what are we doing here? So, coming in at number 13 for the community and number 10 of the houses, this is the first house and the worst reviewed house of the community at least, was Hell Block Horror.
Enter a prison whose savage inmates are monstrous creatures. If they break free from their cells, it's a death sentence for everyone. For me, Hell Block was number 12.
This was number 11 for me, and it was, I didn't put numbers next to my houses, but it was number 8.
It was number 9 of my houses.
I will say this about Hell Block. Hell Block had everything working against it. Mm-hmm. Hell Block, so it is the worst kept secret in the world. Hell Block was Evil Dead Rise, and it was almost done. At the last minute, the movie had been delayed, and it was decided that the house would be delayed as well. And something would replace the house. And you can tell the entrance to the parking garage in Evil Dead Rise is so obviously the facade of Hell Block, and you're just oh. And you can see the same thing with the Horror Hotel in Hollywood. They did not have a lot of time to stucco over the walls and make them look like cement and come up with a theme. And I think for what they did in the amount of time they had, I'm glad I'm glad they didn't purge it. They didn't turn it into The Purge, at least.
Yeah.
And what the scenic crew was able to do, what the decor team was able to do, they transformed it into a prison. I think the reality is just prisons are not that exciting. And they were able to reuse a bunch of classic Halloween Horror Nights monsters, and there were plenty of them that I was excited to see. Honestly, I feel like the cast knew that people didn't like it, and I feel like that had put a chip on their shoulder, and they motherfucking worked it.
The energy of that house was amazing. Every single time you went through it, those actors were just in your face, going for it, 100%. So that is really, I think, what kind of saved this house for me.
I would agree 100%, because the first time I did it, I was not impressed. Mm-hmm. Truly, I wasn't. And it was like the next weekend, like weekend 2, the cast got their feedback and they were like, "Oh, you wanna put us at the bottom of your list? Well, fucking watch this." And I have nothing but the highest praises for this cast. I truly think they were the best of the year, honestly. I think this was the most aggressive cast. They worked it. They worked that shit out.
I don't think I have that much to say about it. Like, I did also really enjoy seeing the like Easter eggs to like previous monsters. I thought that was really good, and a clever way to kind of like make the best out of a bad situation, especially since it was 31, to kind of like give us a little bit more of that like tie-in and throwback.
Yeah, this could have been a house at 30, you know?
Yeah.
So I think story-wise, it was really cool. I think the way that they organized each of the sections of the house to be like, this is like vampire, Strangoid-esque monsters. Mm-hmm. This is aliens. This is that. I thought that was really cool. Obviously, the Easter egg monsters from throughout the history of Horror Nights, that was really exciting. I mean, like, there was a fucking tooth fairy in it. There was a mouth brooder from Depths of Fear in it. Like, there were so many, like, a Yeti. The Yeti was one of my favorite scares. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think this house gets a bad rep, and I think, obviously, for reasons, but I think that there was some good about it, and I know people who this was their favorite house, and I think it's totally justified. Mm-hmm. if it was your favorite house.
Yes.
You know, it didn't have a lot of just mind-blowing moments, so it's like the things that are above it just they just have a little bit more story and a little bit more time to develop what they were, and that's why they ended up above it. So I feel the need to defend Hellblock Horror just a little bit, because even I shit-talked it a bit, and I don't think that was quite fair, because it had a lot working against it.
So coming in at number 12 for the community was Scarecrow Cursed Soil, and that was our third scare zone.
At an abandoned farm, scarecrows have risen from the crust of the earth to hunt you and seek revenge. They'll harvest your screams. Where was this for you?
For me, Scarecrow ended up being number 8.
This was number 7 for me. This was my second favorite scare zone of the season.
This is my third.
I loved this, and I thought it captured the tone of the house perfectly. Mm-hmm. I thought it felt reverent to the various scarecrow-themed scare zones of the past, like Field of Screams, Harvest of the Souls, even like Twisted Tradition, like that rustic farm kind of feeling. And then I thought that barn was so fucking cool.
I thought that the barn was very like aesthetically amazing. I thought it looked very awesome, but I feel like it was hyped up a little bit more prior to the event. Like, it didn't give me this like you're walking through a house feeling.
Well, that's fair. And here's what I liked about the barn, is that it brought me back to the Herschel's barn and the Walking Dead scare zone that was in that spot. And then it brought me back to the schoolhouse in 2008, where they also had a little building. And obviously the Herschel barn and the schoolhouse were like had a roof and like were a bit more themed, but I liked that this was in a spot where you had to pass through it. And so that to me was just such a like just a really cool way to evolve a Central Park scare zone. Like, we never see big structures going into Central Park like that.
That's true. But yeah, I felt like Gorewood Forest did like a better job of making me feel like I was in a scare zone with like the scares that it had.
I think both of these had good scares. I want to say that. I think Central Park is always pretty good with like jump scares. Mm-hmm. I would agree that Gorewood had better scares. I just think it just had more. Mm-hmm. But like Scarecrow, I don't want to discredit some of its scares. The outhouse.
Oh yeah.
I saw him put people on their ass.
Yeah, I'm not discrediting it. I really enjoyed it, and some of the scares were amazing, but I liked more outside of the barn scares than the barn itself.
Oh, well, that's fair. Yeah, I liked this zone. I've always thought scarecrows are super creepy. I loved the haunted house. This is one of my favorite like aesthetics of that they do constantly at Halloween Horror Nights. You know,
Perfect for 31.
perfect
too.
for 31. If I had one problem with this zone, it's that I wish all of the pumpkins that were in the fucking stupid metal arch in Horrors of Halloween were over here.
I do love the pumpkins in that zone. It just gives you this feeling of Halloween no matter what.
And I'm one of the people who will defend not putting pumpkins in Central Park. Like, they do it all the time. Experiment, do something different. But I think this was the year to do it. And I think not doing it was like, okay, we get it, you're being different. Like, but this was the year to do it. Otherwise, I thought even the actual scarecrows, like not the cast, but the real mannequins that were up were insanely creepy.
They were.
And that's creepy is really hard to achieve. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, that is the thing. I think that this zone was definitely the creepiest zone, which I really enjoyed.
Coming in at number 11, we have another scare zone. This is the second place for scare zones, so, do the math, I guess. It is Sweet Revenge.
The sweets from Major Sweets Candy Company have turned children into crazed killers. This Halloween's all trick, no treat, and total mayhem.
I will admit, I am pretty surprised. Like, it wasn't my favorite zone, but I feel like on social media, this is the only one people were talking about.
This is definitely my favorite zone. I had this at number 4.
Number 4 overall?
Yeah.
This is number 8 overall for me, but it's literally like, I liked this one a lot. It just, it didn't top out the group for me, but I totally get why it's some people's number 1 scare zone.
Yeah. It was just such a fun zone to be in, and it was huge, felt huge, so you had a lot of space and a lot of things to like keep you entertained in that zone. Like you had the projections in the window, you had the floats, you had all, the roaming scare actors.
You had the tribute store was tied into it.
The tribute store, yes.
I loved the tribute store. I loved the story of the tribute store, that it was part of the zone. It was like an attraction in the zone that was part of the community experience, but it was also tied into the summer tribute store. It was like supposed to be the same building with an Halloween attraction overlay. I loved all of that. I loved the truck with the weapons. That was really cool.
That was
obviously you said the floats. Loved the parade floats. These were created new for this year's event, but they were recreations of old parade floats from back in the day when Halloween Horror Nights had a parade. So I think that was really cool. Like, I don't know, the one gargoyle one was the interview with the vampire float. So, I loved that. If Schoolhouse and Psycho Scarabee, like, had a baby, it would have been this scare zone. But it had all that extra flair to it. I just, we've seen like the block party gone wrong, spooky trick-or-treater thing before. So that just is the reason it wasn't my number 1 scare zone.
But it just works.
It works so well.
It is something that I just love to see. Like that just kind of like classic Halloween, like trick-or-treating, but like something's wrong feeling is just really fun for me. So that'll always kind of be a classic that I'll enjoy. And it also just had such a big storyline too, because they did give that whole storyline through the official Universal podcast about how this zone kind of came to be, which made this zone even more fun if you knew that story.
I would say that Major Sweets has entered the canon of like extremely iconic characters who are not icon status, that people are going to be begging to see Major Sweets in some capacity in the future. Like I could absolutely see some kind of candy factory haunted house in the future. 100% I could see a Sweet Revenge haunted house. Like I think it reminded me a lot of and I know I wasn't alone in this, it reminded me of like Meets and Leave It to Cleaver, but not like a cannibal theme, but like a candy poison theme. I thought that was cool.
It's also very like in the vein of like Halloween 3.
Very that for sure. It feels very trick or treat, even like this block party street part of trick or treat, not like the foresty parts. But it's great. I have no complaints. There was so much going on in this zone, and it truly felt alive. And it was the hangout zone for sure. Like if you just wanted to take a break and just soak up the atmosphere vibes.
Yeah, you just get your drink at Finnegan's. You're waiting for your friends that are in the tribute store. Like, there's a lot going on in that area that you can just hang out and vibe in.
To me, scare zones are in a lot of ways more important than the haunted houses, because this is where you spend most of your night when you're not in line. It's zones like this that like really like give you that like, oh, this is what's special, like outside of the houses, because obviously the houses have a crazy budget and they have a movie studio behind them. Like these are the places where you're like, wow, I feel immersed. I feel
and it's where if you're not coming every week or every like a couple days every week, that you get to see all of the detail that they put into this event that you're not gonna maybe be able to see if you're just running through the house one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great. Like,
yeah, it was good.
There's nothing I would change. It was perfect. I think by all rights it is probably the best zone of the year, but there were just other things I personally liked a little better. Okay. You read the description, so you're reading the title. Okay. This was the first house we did of the season, I believe.
I think you're correct.
And it was really weird vibes coming out of it.
Oh my god.
Recording our instant reaction, we like, you could tell we were both like, I don't know how I felt about that. And we were trying really hard to keep the energy going, and like, I'm excited, but we were both like,
What does this mean for the rest of this event tonight?
It was a really weird first impression.
Spoiler alert, coming in at number 10. Coming in at number 10 for the community, the number 9 haunted house is Spirits of the Coven.
A coven of beautiful flapper witches will lure you into their 1920s speakeasy, reveal their haggish true form, and turn your scream squad into a witch's brew. They'll be cackling, you'll be screaming. Baby, I'm cackling. I was motherfucking everywhere with this house.
It was...
I was up, I was down.
Here's the problem.
I was around.
I feel like first impressions, it was not good.
It grew.
It was really not good. They fixed things.
They added things. And they added triggers.
Audio.
Yeah.
It definitely improved throughout the event, but like going straight into it, I walked out of that like, this is the biggest disappointment I've ever experienced at Horror Nights in my entire life. Yeah, you root for witches and flapper, like 1920s. Like, I wanted Sleep No More. I wanted just like the dream. Like,
I wanted a lot from it. Where did it land for you? I would like to know.
It landed at number 11 for me. It was 8.
So it was so it was really close to the bottom for you. Okay, and then it was number 9 overall for me, and number 1, 2, 3. It was number 6 for me.
I will say though, like, I don't know how much it improved from September to October, but you did get another chance to see it in October that I didn't get.
I would say that the time I saw it in October was actually disappointing again.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. We got Rush of Fear last season, so which is my first time ever doing that. And I got so depressed that I was like, I can't not go to Horror Nights again before it closes. So I ended up going on closing night. Like, I just bought a single night ticket. And I did do this house again because I had quite enjoyed it during the season. Like, it had grown on me over the course of September. And I was a little let down again. But that said, it has pros. It has a lot of cons. I don't think it's the worst house, though. It's very middle of the pack for me.
I don't think it's the worst house. It definitely was, like, my biggest disappointment. Like, I had it at number 1, going, like, hype. No, I didn't, like, absolutely hate it. It did grow on me as the season went on. So it'd have the biggest, like, drop with me. But there was just, like, parts of it where it was just, like, no scare actors in the house at all. So that really kind of, like, threw me out of it, because you're just walking through hallways. And, like, they were pretty hallways, but, like, they were hallways.
It was beautiful. I want to say that about this house. Is honestly, every inch of it was gorgeous. I feel like we've had houses at Horror Nights now. The storytelling is tight as fuck. And we had some tight as fuck storytelling this year. Like, Dead Man's Pier, there's so much to unpack from that experience in terms of storytelling. And I did not feel that from this. We had to have the pig thing explained. They would smuggle beer in through the pigs. Mm-hmm. I didn't get that. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't understand the pig thing, so having that explained was helpful. But it was like, it had such like a low energy, I guess, to it. And I really thought there was going to be more. And I thought for a house about witches, there would be some magic. And there was no magic. There was no... And when I say magic, obviously I don't mean, like, fucking Siegfried and Roy, but I mean, like, Halloween Horror Nights is very good at implementing stage magic and stage illusions into the experience, into the haunted houses, and to where you have things where you're just like, wow.
Yeah, or even just more of, like, illusions, where
Yeah.
you, like, are just like, oh my gosh, it's a hallway that's never ending, or, like, there's a river underneath me.
Yeah, or the walls will vanish. You know, things like
Yeah.
that. I expected to get a little magic from this witch house, and there wasn't any. And yeah, if we've said it once, we've said it a million times. I know you cannot judge something based on what it didn't do. But I think witches, there's something you should have done and didn't do.
Yeah, I think it was also a lot more, like, basement than I wanted, instead of, like,
Yeah, I wanted
20s, like, club.
I needed about 50% more speakeasy,
Yeah.
and about 50% less underground.
Rail cars.
Yeah, rail cars and underground tunnels and, like, Shanghai tunnels and stuff like that. Barrels, yeah. So, I get it. I think the concept was really cool. I think the story was really cool. I love that final witch with the waterfall projections around her. I thought that was so cool. And her design was really cool. If I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. She should have been the sorceress in Conjure the Dark. I didn't even have it hyped that high. Like, there were just other things I cared more about. And even I was, like, very disappointed by it. Like, I really wanted this house to be something special, and I'm still like championing like a 1920s theme. Like, I want Vamp 25. Like, yes. I want like a 1925 Vamp zone in 2025, preferably. Like, can you imagine? Ooh. Witches in the 20s is also just such a wonderful concept, and it sucks that it wasn't.
I think also part of that problem is like, I don't think it translates very well that the, like, gorgeous women in the beginning are also, like, the haggish creature, like, witches.
There's, like, one... doesn't one girl have, like, a sexy outfit and then she shows her face and then she's kind of ugly? Or am I imagining that? Either way, it wasn't clear enough. I want to talk about things we liked, though, because I feel like we've really ripped on it for a few minutes, and I think, like, we need to throw some positives, because it definitely had some. The facade was gorgeous.
Yes, it was.
The bathtub scene.
I loved the bathtub scene.
Bathtub scene was gorgeous. The elevator, the guy on the piano.
I loved the bar room.
The whole bar room. I loved that it was decorated for a Halloween party as well, like the bar itself. I thought was really beautiful. I don't know if you noticed that.
I don't know if I noticed that.
Yeah, it was decorated for a Halloween party, but it was like 20s decoration, so that was really beautiful. I loved that... I mean, because, you know, the thing about speakeasies is that they're always hidden in something that they're not supposed to be hidden in. There was a suggestion like, there's a meat packing plant, but I like the coat check in the hat rack. I thought that was really cool. I just wish there was, like, more of, like, I don't feel like any one scene, once you left the bar, had that, like, instantly iconic, you're forever going to be thinking about that moment, you know?
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
Other than I think the final witch and maybe the bathtub witch.
I do think that has a lot to do with there just being a lot of hallways with no actors in it, and it's just what's going to be really memorable about that. Besides, that you walk through hallways.
And it's honestly, that's the same problem that Hellblock Horror had. The difference is Hellblock Horror didn't have that problem intentionally. Hellblock Horror wasn't designed with that problem built in from the jump, and so, like, I feel like a lot of this stems from, like, this, like, no matter what you did, you couldn't fix much because it came down to, like, to setting and to storytelling.
Yeah.
And that sucks because it's a cool concept. And as it stands, I see this house just kind of being forgotten in the future. I don't think this is going to be one people are talking about for years to come. I don't think people are going to be hotly debating it.
I would like to see a take two.
I would love a take two. Maybe in the 40s? Like, lounge singer kind of moment, like a Case Files kind. I could even see this as, like, a Case Files, like, scenario, like in a follow-up to Case Files or something. I could see something like that. That would be kind of cool. Like, see Boris interacting with these witches. Mm-hmm. I totally see that. But yeah, Spirits of the Coven.
Yep.
It was what it was. Coming in at number 9 overall for the season and number 8 for the houses is Halloween.
Gather your friends and visit Haddonfield, Illinois, where Michael Myers is about to don his mask and embark on his first brutal spree. Silent, merciless, relentless. He's the embodiment of pure evil. You don't want to go alone as you go back to where it all began. This year, step into the original 1978 horror classic, Halloween. I know where you put it.
I want to hear where you put it.
I put it at number 9. So I am right there with the rest of the community.
Yeah, what was it out of your houses?
Out of my houses, 6.
Well, I also put it at number 9 for my houses. I had it at number 16 for the season. No, I'm sorry. I had it at 15. 15 for the season. I mean, let's just get it out of the way. We have seen this movie before.
Yes.
And we've now entered a trend of Halloween Horror Nights doing movies that they've done before. Not franchises, but movies that they've done before. And I don't like that. I would have loved Halloween 3. I would have loved any of the shitty post-Halloween 4 sequels. It's okay. It's fine.
I don't mind that we've seen it before because it is such a classic horror IP and it's called Halloween. This year was 31. It does make sense to me. I'm also a huge fan of Halloween and the other Halloween house one of the other Halloween houses that we saw. So I was really excited for this house. So
I will say I did think it is fair to also say that, like, for new fans, of course, yes, you know, cool, you're getting to see one of the, like, most iconic horror movies ever made, like, done as haunted house. I get why it's back. I just, you know, when I say I don't like it, I mean more like it doesn't do much for me specifically.
Yeah,
I guess.
but it's one of my favorite IPs ever, so I'm okay with seeing it multiple times because I like it. But yeah, no, I still kind of enjoyed it, and I thought it was kind of new because it didn't have like that big facade going into it, which I was expecting to see again. It went through just the first scene, you got a title before you had that facade. So I kind of liked that. I had problems with this house too because the 2015 house, right?
14. We did also do it in Hollywood in 2015. So
the 2014 house, it was just so good. Yeah, it was so good, and there's not going to be any beating that. So like I even knew that going into it, but it was still good. I still enjoyed it, but I didn't feel like claustrophobic with the scares like I normally do in a Halloween house.
Which is my biggest complaint about it, is that every set felt way too unnaturally big.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Like the huge living room, a huge hallway. Like, it didn't feel like a home, but I feel like generally they're really good at making you feel like you are in someone's fucking house, like in their living room, in their hallway, like you're in someone's home. And I never once felt like I was in a residence.
Yeah.
Halloween.
It felt like it was a studio. Like, it didn't feel like a house.
It felt like a studio. It didn't feel like a real environment. And this event is really good at making you feel like you're in the place.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in fucking Rooms to Go.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was on a showroom floor about to buy a couch. Laurie Strode is like, I can offer you 12 months same as cash financing.
You're actually in Scream 3 in like that fake house. And
yes.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
It's something, so that was very disorienting and weird for me. I loved the house reveal, like the Myers home.
Yeah. I did like the continuity of the story going into it of hitting like him killing his sister, the psych ward escape. Like, I really did kind of like that flow.
I loved the transition from the psych ward with the patients at the gates and you round the corner and then you're in Haddonfield. Mm-hmm. And I loved the garden trellis scare with Michael with the mirror. I thought that was an excellent distraction, like just a great, like, I guess it's not your first Michael, but a great reveal of Michael, and like to really make you, I feel like that's a moment you feel like you're in the movie, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, that is the best moment of this house, is there's Michael, we just left the insane asylum, we got Michael, and we got the surprise, it's the mirror scare, and then you turn your head, and it's just that massive, massive scale for the Myers house. And that, I will fully give all of the credit to, like, that was amazing. I love that. And then the sheets right after that leading into the house.
Yeah. And like I said, like, my only issue is I feel like every other Halloween house that we've done, it's just like you get like sucker punched with those scares, especially in like the sheets.
I want to hear that. I want to hear that sound every
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Like less than, actually.
Yeah,
probably.
I want to hear it. Like, I want to just get beat in the face with that sound. And I would agree. It felt kind of sparse.
Yeah. Which is one of the reasons why I usually enjoy these houses so much, is because they scare me, and that is something that I use to like rank houses pretty high. Oh. Coming in at number 8 overall and number 1 for scare zones is Graveyard Deadly Unrest.
On All Hallows Eve, a dark storm descends upon a cemetery and awakens long-dead spirits. No one living thing can escape them. So where was it for you?
For me, I had Graveyard at 6.
And I had Graveyard at 14. I don't like this.
I know you don't like it. Tell the people why you
I don't like it. Fine. It's not even really that I don't like it. I don't fucking get the glowing shit. I don't get it. You have these beautiful sets. You have these beautiful, rich white costumes with all this, like, beautiful, like, stain work and these, like, grayscale ghost faces with, like, these beautiful puffed up, like, hairdos. And then you've got a fucking glow-in-the-dark ghost on a guy's shoulders. Like, I don't see the connective tissue. I don't get it. And I know, I do understand that, like, in team member preview, they were trying some stuff with, like, UV reactive tool over the costumes of the people who are in, like, the business suits and stuff, and maybe it worked then. I know people loved Shoulder Skeleton. I think he's iconic, too. I fully get it. I get the irony of it. I get it. At least I get why we like it. I don't get it in the context of the scare zone. I don't get it in the context of the story. I don't get it aesthetically. There's so much cognitive dissonance happening between these two things. It just felt so tonally separate. Like, the zone is so serious. Like, it's dead serious. Then... and then you have these, like, silly fucking, like, highly camp ghosts paired with it. And I don't get it. I'm sorry, I've been rambling. Please tell me what you think about it.
That's a fair criticism of it for sure. I just loved it. It was just like I don't know. It was gorgeous. I loved being there. I do understand where you're coming from. It definitely didn't mesh completely like that. But I still really enjoyed it, and it like hit somewhere in my soul that I liked. So I think that's why it's where it's at for me. I also was attempting to like read like a book that kind of went with each scare zone for the season, and so I read the Graveyard book by Neil Gaiman. So that kind of gave me like a little bit of a vibe for it as well, just for my personal kind of what I was doing. That made me enjoy the zone even more.
I will say, there are things that are really beautiful. Like, beyond just the beauty of it, I loved the sleep and death thing. Mm-hmm. They reminded me of the old Broadway version of the Red Death scene in Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
With the big-headed skull on the Phantom. And he's like, why so silent? Like, very that. I loved that. And their big, like, their feather plumes. They were so gay rights. So I did love Sleep and Death. And I also just love the myth of, like, you know, Somnus and Thanatos, and, like, I like that. It's really cool. I wish their dialogue would have played more.
Yes, yeah. And even when it did play, I feel like it was so low that you couldn't really... it lasted for so long that you didn't get the story.
I was told, I don't know for sure, but that I believe the audio trigger was on a foot pedal, and if it was raining, they couldn't hit it, and it rained a lot last year.
Yeah.
But it should have been just part of the audio loop. That did not need to be, it wasn't like, an audio trigger should be like, I'm gonna get ya. Or it should be, meh, 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 meh.
I knew you were gonna keep that in, even though it was stupid.
But an audio trigger should just be, boom, it's done. That was a fucking conversation if that was an audio trigger.
Yeah.
And, like, that should have just been playing.
And then which actor is setting it off?
Yeah, I don't know. And so it's like, that should have just been going all night, and they should have just been talking the whole time. Like, that was so interesting. And I think it's such a, like, it felt like an eye droplet of a really interesting story, and it didn't give me any fucking thing else. And that made me so mad. And so, I guess part of the reason I have so much disdain for this zone is because it has so much potential, so much wasted potential, in my opinion. And I'm a picky bitch. But yeah. I mean, it's a good zone. Like, it is objectively a very pretty... It's scary, spooky. The cast, I get why it's number one. But if, Horrors of Halloween hadn't been here, it would have been my number 5. Okay, so number 7 overall, and also number 7 for the houses, is The Horrors of Blumhouse.
So step inside a new double feature of Blumhouse horror. Your Scream Squad will find yourselves trapped between a frantic teen and the ruthless serial killer she swapped bodies with in Freaky. Then you'll try to make a desperate escape from the dark basement of the Grabber before you become his latest victim in the terrifying The Black Phone. One, I'm 30, so I'm not going to be a victim of the Grabber.
And you're a grown woman.
That too.
And the Grabber likes little boys. So, I've had a lot of time to dwell on the Black Phone. And as a gay man living in Ron DeSantis' Florida, in the era of queer people being called groomers and pedophiles, I don't really think that the family theme park Universal Studios Florida, Universal Orlando Resort, Universal Hollywood Resort really needed the movie about the gay pedophile child killer represented at their family theme park. I don't know, just kind of the optics. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, why the fuck was this at Halloween Horror Nights?
Then go further and ask, why was it a movie?
It can be a movie, though. And it can be a short story. But I don't know. And I realize we weren't quite on that
That's
that
what I was
conversation.
going to say, is like, I do feel like last year, especially when they would have been planning the houses, I don't think it was quite as prevalent and fucking... Let's not get into it because...
I know, it's a really dark topic, and I don't want to dwell on that. This is a fun show, and it's a lighthearted show. But, I don't know, the more I've thought about it, the more I'm just like, why the fuck was this at this event? Like, I just think there's certain things... Like, yes, nothing should be taboo in art, but at Halloween Horror Nights, no matter how much we want it to be rated R, it's kind of rated PG-13. It's kind of for families. There are kids there. Like, whether you want them to be or not, there are kids at the event. I've been going since I was 7. Like... families are there, and I think it's a really, like, it's just a little too fucked up. Like, the implications and the optics are gross. Like, I don't know. I don't want to think about that in that context, I guess.
I absolutely agree with you on that, but just to play devil's advocate, like, I don't think you get much of the storyline.
You don't get anything of the storyline. That's totally
And
true.
they put a shirt on the guy that's, like, sitting in the chair.
Yeah, it's the, I don't know. I just think, to be blunt, I think sexual abuse doesn't really have a place at Halloween Horror Nights in terms of the kind of horror that's represented there. And it's not even in the movie, but it's heavily implied. And it's just a really yucky vibe. I don't like it. On top of that, I think that half of the house was a fucking piece of shit. It was black walls, Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood bullshit. It was a fucking shitty half of the house. Like, it wasn't good. It was objectively bad. By the way, this was my number 17. How did you rank it, Lauren?
For me, I had it at number 10, so it was number 7 on my houses.
Okay. And I liked the freaky half.
Yeah, the freaky half was...
there are things that I was disappointed by.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything I disliked about it.
Yeah, there wasn't anything I disliked about it. But yeah, there were things that were disappointing with it. Like, it didn't get as much, like, Dayglow fun as I was expecting there would be.
Do you remember when we did it on Special Report and we were talking about what we were hoping to see from the house? We specifically talked about the mini golf scene. And there's that scene where they, like, burst through the fucking the lattice. It's like a Dayglow lattice in the mini golf scene. And I was like, oh my god, that'll totally be the crosshatch elastic lattice scare. And I guess if I say it should be in there, it should be in there. I guess if we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times. But you can't judge a house based on what it didn't do.
You can.
You can. And but there's other things too. Like, I mean, I don't know what you would have done with the cryo kill, but a drop window that's kind of out of your field of view for one of the coolest kills in the movie is pretty disappointing.
I will say, like, what I feel like this is a new location that we haven't had a house in before.
Yes, that's fair too. That is fair too.
It was like smaller corridors. Like, I always just, like, kept running to, like, the door frames that, like, I'm like, why is there a door frame in the middle of this house?
Oh, and the transition point is so alienating and
yeah,
weird.
it's so, I mean...
It literally... Full stop, you come to a dead stop, the house is over, and then you start another haunted house. It's this weird marathon of 2 haunted houses. It's very weird.
What if they just did all the haunted houses like that? You just get one line and everybody just
I would honestly at least you would just keep going, and then you could probably go home at around 9:30. And then how are they going to get their beer sales? They'd be in the line. There is no line. They'd be next to the staircase, underneath it, right before, and then you got to chug it because you can't go in the house with beer. But there's only 30 feet between here and the next door.
I mean, that's what we do always. Anyways.
So I didn't like this house. For moral reasons, and then also for quality reasons, and then for reasons that just had to do with like disappointing use of the movie out of the 2 that I actually like. Yeah, I don't know.
I think one of the reasons I have it ranked a little bit higher too is because I wasn't looking at it for like the moral standpoint. Yeah, I totally understand. There's definitely black hallways in Blackbone for sure, but also I want to say both of these movies, they had some good scares that got me, and like I've said previously and on this episode even, is that I will rank houses that scare me a little bit higher, even if it's maybe not like a better house over, I don't know. I really like getting scared. That's why I want to, that's what I enjoy.
I get it. I love getting, I never get scared. So when I do, I really, I get it.
And I feel like the black phone portion of this house did get me quite a few times, because you had all those black halls and then just like a scrim where somebody's there.
Like, there was a lot of them.
So it got me a few times, which is probably why I have this ranked higher on my list.
The one thing I will give it is those 5 minutes that you get to be inside in the queue are very nice. But God, what a horrible queuing experience at the Fast and the Furious building, even in Express.
Yeah, sometimes it was really weird.
This house was really popular though. I mean, what is it ranked? 7 out of 17. Very popular house, almost in the top 5 of 17 attractions, and I don't understand why. To be honest with any of you people, I don't get it. I feel like I hated so much about it that sometimes I'll forget about the cast at all, and it's like I'm not even thinking about you guys. I'm thinking about like sets and like storytelling and like missed opportunities. Sorry.
I mean, you decimated it so thoroughly that what else is there to say?
You know, after
let's talk about Ron DeSantis some more. That'll be
after
fun.
Ron DeSantis, how do you come back from that? Yeah, that's a drink one. Yeah, we did just record this take, and it didn't capture. So, hopefully, all of the cool, funny things we just said can happen again.
So we are just down to houses now. So number 6 overall was Fiesta de Chupacabra.
Visit a Latin American village where the legend of the creature Chupacabra is celebrated with a colorful fiesta, and the streets are lined with the crimson blood of tourists like you and your amigos. Where was this for you?
So I had this house at number 5.
This was number 3 for me. This was top 3. I really, 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 really liked this house.
It was a really cute house. I liked it a lot.
It just gave me a lot of things I've wanted for a really long time. I feel like it was the original house spiritual successor to American Werewolf in London that I have been waiting for. I've been waiting for that like heavy puppet animal attack house. We've had puppets, of course, but like we've had demogorgons and xenomorphs, but like it's not quite the same. I've been waiting for this kind of a puppet house, and I got that finally. And I've been waiting for another like cultural folklore, global mythology, urban legend, cryptid kind of house from that as well. I feel like I've been waiting for that for a really long time. I loved that house. I loved the attention to detail and the very like specific grabs from folklore and from like mythology and things like that. I feel like I got that in this house as well. Mm-hmm. Like the leaving out buckets of blood and the like painting the chupacabra symbol on the wall, or just the way that, like...
It had, like, the forced perspective.
Yes.
You were just, like, immersed. You were definitely in a village that was having a fiesta.
Yes.
And at every point, you could hear it in the distance, and you just weren't there. And that was your downfall.
Yeah, like, you got the sense in this house that the party was somewhere else, and you, a tourist, took a wrong turn, and... maybe you would get lucky and make your way back to the parade or the festival or whatever's going on, but you keep making the wrong turn and you just end up in, like, worse and worse places. And I just felt very immersed in the world that this haunted house created. I just thought the storytelling was really well executed on top of that. Mm-hmm. You always had, if there wasn't a chupacabra in the scene with you, you could hear it fucking mauling something, like, right on the other side of the wall or right around the corner, or you'd see its silhouette and its shadow as it was just about to get you, but not quite. And then when you finally get the first reveal, it's like a full puppet, and they were a little bit more like rat scary like to me, but I thought they were kind of just adorable.
They were,
but they were still very aggressive and fun. If I had a complaint about them, it's that I wish I got to see them do their scare more. And I don't know if that was just timing every time I did it, but I feel like every single time I did it, no one wanted to jump out. And I get it. I'm a big fucking man. I'm not going to give you a full body scare, but, like, I would also like to see the performance. I don't know. So that's, like, if I had a complaint. But I don't know. The meat locker scene?
Yeah, the, like, meat locker butcher place. That was a really cool room. I really enjoyed that one a lot.
The animals, like, hanging from the ceiling. I always love a hanging dead animal carcass moment in a haunted house. But then also, like, that body that would, like, that dead guy, and then it would just get, like, fucking ripped through that wall. Mm-hmm. Like, that was... So I would walk slow. I would literally be like, we're gonna do the thing. Like, I literally... I loved seeing that. And then, like, I missed it more times than I saw it. And whatever, it's just timing. It is what it is. I'm not going to judge a house based on that. But I thought that was so cool. Something I did love about it also, we didn't do the character dining this year, but I know the mask maker character, I just love the way she was implemented into the story to begin with. She also was meeting in character dining, and she would, like, tell you, like, folk tales and, like, stories from within the world of the haunted house as well, and, like, kind of tie all of that into this, like, seamless sort of experience. And it's like she was kind of welcoming you to the fiesta and like beckoning you to it if you went to the character dining. I thought that was really cool. And then when you would get to the house and, like, see her in, like, the first presentation of her, she's selling her masks in her basket or whatever. I don't know, she's welcoming you in because she knows she's about to feed you to a motherfucker. And then, like, you see her later on, and she's, like, you keep seeing all these masks she's made throughout the whole house. I love the way that was tied into the podcast. Mm-hmm. And the podcast story with the family who also made masks, and the father, like, gives his little girl a mask, and then he gets, like, fucking shredded at the end of the story. Did you?
No, it's really cool. Don't think I listened to that one.
The story's really cool. It's probably my favorite of the stories. I felt very immersed in this experience, and I was very just satisfied and happy with it. I really liked this house a lot. It was really touched a very specific thing I've been looking for. And
I will say, too, I really liked that they spoke Spanish in the audio in the house. I can't speak Spanish at all, so I have no idea what was being said, but, like, I think that's such a good, like, thing for, like, a Spanish speaker to walk into this house and be able to get that extra story that maybe I don't get, and then I can, be like, hey, what's that? So it, like, brings you together to, like, be like, hey, I need your help. What did they say? Give me some more of this story. I want to know. So I do like that aspect of it. I like that too. As well.
And I like that it adds to that feeling of alienation and American tourism, because that's part of the narrative. I mean, the description calls you a tourist, and then also some of there's the victims characters in the house that are, like, dressed like tourists. So I think that's a really cool element to, like, just add to the authenticity of the experience as an experience, but then also just for, like, cultural representation, like, it's really significant. So I think it's really cool, and I hope that we see more cultural exchange houses in the future going forward. We get a lot of Latin American stuff in Hollywood. This is only, like, the second time we've done it here, but in the future, I'd love to see maybe like what Singapore does. They pull from all across like East Asian countries. Like every season, they'll do a urban legend from like a neighboring country, and I think that's really cool because like their haunted houses are so like classic Universal Studios Florida haunted houses.
It's also just like you can't really go wrong with urban legends. They're urban legends for a reason.
Yeah,
and
if they're persistent, it's because they're scary. You know.
Yeah.
And they touch something in us that we find frightening. So HHN doesn't have to be so fucking white. So that got me thinking, what folklore, myth, urban legend, cryptid, creature from around the world, respectfully, of course, we wouldn't want this to be done disrespectfully. Would you like to see done at the event in the future? Maybe like the Jersey Devil.
That's another one that I would maybe.
The Mothman. I mean, this is just American, but like. All right, number 5, bugs eaten alive.
While touring a 1950s home of the future, you'll be surrounded by the slime of bugs everywhere as hordes of many-legged terrors descend upon you and your scream squad. You'll be dropping like flies.
Where was this for you?
This was my number 7.
This was my number 5. I fucking love camp.
I did love the campiness of this house. That was great.
I would like to say something. Everyone was talking about how scary this house is.
Not at all.
Not at all. What are you people talking about? Like, I'm saying that as like, not even as like I don't get scared in haunted houses. Like,
I do get scared. It was not scary.
This was not a scary. This was 100% tongue in cheek. It was funny. It was camp. It was going for humor. I don't get what y'all are talking about.
The only thing that I think is scary is if you do have that, like, what is it called? The fear of holes.
Oh, trypophobia, maybe.
Like that. I feel
that's
like
kind of gross.
Thing.
Yeah.
Like I definitely hate bugs. Like.
Yeah, but they're so obviously plastic roaches glued to the wall. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't scary at all.
The fear of a bug is a very specific guttural primal feeling. There was a spider on the floor last night and I had an out of body experience.
That cockroach the other day.
That too. There was oh my God. I know, I understand the fear of bugs and I'm like, it's like, this wasn't a scary house, but it was a very fun house.
It was fun.
And there's so much I loved about it. I mean, the showroom.
Yeah.
The moment we walked in, I was like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. She came in. She was like, hello. She was serving for the children. And I was like, okay, bitch.
Yeah, she was great. I did love that moment. And then, like, Big Grub?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Cute. Adorable.
Grub, something Grub. I don't know what his name is. The Grub. Very cute. The big, like, termite fly thing, whatever it is, adorable. Then just, like, that feeling of, it just felt like a 50s black and white cheesy horror sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
like
The Fly.
50-Foot Ant, or, like, yeah, The Fly, or that kind of movie. I was just so over the top. The color palette was phenomenal. Like, it just had such a wonderful sense of color and the lighting and the costumes and the art direction of it was just landed on the 50s aesthetic so beautifully. I mean, the showroom scene, that mid-century modern like wallpaper, and it was like circles of little lines coming out of it, and it was like fucking spiders. Genius. There's so much that I loved about this house. If you said this was your number 1, I would be like, valid, completely valid. There's just things I liked more for very personal reasons. But God, I fucking loved this house.
Yeah. This house was good. The walk to the house was fucking horrible and atrocious.
And that's not getting any fucking better, baby. Not with the Kid Zone construction going on. I live for this is a weird thing to live for because it's an aesthetic I'd be like, ew. But the army man,
yeah,
that is so camp to me. Like, get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, this is so stupid.
Very like Starship Troopers.
Very. Oh, yes. It's very Starship Troopers. And it's bugs. Oh, my God. No. Yes. I know the straight men in this audience probably have. But for the gays and the girls and the theys, do yourself a favor, girlies. It's fucking Verhoeven. Director of Showgirls. Do yourself a favor. More on this house, because I feel like we're not done. The big motherfucking, Miss Queen Bee, towards the end. This house felt like Men in Black.
Yeah.
Like
the ride.
And the movie. And the movie. It's like, but no alien theme, but bugs. And it was giving, I don't know if you've ever been through, if you've ever flipped through the old, Mars Attacks trading cards that, the movie is based on. But there's a lot of giant bugs in that, too. It's giving that. And then the music, that, theremin 1950s, sci-fi, woo kind of music that was playing was so iconic. When Horror Nights gets it right, they get it so fucking right. And there's some stuff this season that I'm not crazy about, but we're in this we're in that grouping of things that were at 31 that were just phenomenal. And I thought this was phenomenal.
I really love a 50s theme for some reason. It's just such a campy classic horror
Happy Homemaker is just so iconically camp to begin with.
Yeah, because you're rooting for something bad to happen to them.
Yes, baby boomers, we want to see you get terrorized. And also that era is just so heteronormative and gross and
racist,
homogenized and racist and white and awful, but also so happy-go-lucky and this is there's already that element of there's something about the 50s that lends itself to camp horror so well.
Yeah.
And probably because so much amazing camp came out of that era, honestly, of black and white camp and color, the atomic era is just so, it just is camp. It was so completely unself-aware, that era in history, because why would the most homogenized era in American history not be completely unself-aware?
Number 4 is The Weeknd After Hours Nightmare.
Prepare to enter the macabre mind of Tedros. Prepare to enter the macabre mind of The Weeknd in this haunted house as he stalks your squad through the surreal nightmare of his after-hours music. A slasher carving a smile at an otherworldly rave. Bandaged maniacs performing extreme plastic surgery. A grotesque mannequin masquerade. His nightmare is now yours. Number 4 in the voting, and it was number 4 for me as well.
And it was number 3 for me.
It was very close to being in my top 3. Had a lot of staffing problems. Obviously, we were extremely hyped for this. This was... I had it number 2 on my ranking. I think I didn't put Weeknd first because I didn't want to be disappointed. But I think realistically it really was first on my hype list. I think it genuinely was the thing I was most excited about. Because I think about how motherfucking hyped we were when we were walking in our little Weeknd outfits.
Well, I mean, we were wearing Weeknd outfits. You're going to be a little bit more hyped for that.
Yeah, and it's we had just gone to the concert literally 2 weeks beforehand. And I feel that colored it a lot too. And I just feel I was really I was kind of trying to delude myself that I wasn't as excited so that I wouldn't be disappointed if it was bad.
I had it at number 3 on my hype list, and it ended up at number 3. So it was good. I really liked it, but I do think that some of the last minute maybe changes that had happened were to its detriment.
I would agree.
And some of the changes that they made midway through the season also.
Yeah,
were why?
We were promised 6 songs from After Hours.
Mm-hmm.
We got 3 of them, and then for opening night, there were 3 songs, and then they added
Starboy songs.
Yeah, they added songs from Starboy. They added I get it that Die For You was going through a moment, but this song's 7 years old. But whatever, we're probably never gonna get another Weeknd house, so there was a little bit more broad representation with the music, so I guess I appreciate that. I really wanted to hear Heartless, and I really wanted to hear Too Late.
Yeah, they cut some of the best songs.
I really wanted to hear After Hours, and I was well, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just they just had the really popular singles from After Hours, and I think that's what disappointed me as well, because After Hours has so many good songs on it. The tracks are just... they hit you, and and I just didn't feel hit in this house. I was oh, it's that song that got overplayed on the radio 3 years ago.
Yeah. So, but the bias in me wanted to put this in the top 3. It doesn't deserve to be in the top 3, but I want it to be. But it's number 4.
I still have it as number 3 because I love a party, and it did give me a party. I left the house dancing, it was fun, and I did get quite a few scares in this house as well. So all things that are gonna put it up on my list.
Aesthetically, we motherfucking nailed that shit in our video, by the way. We had this shit sussed the fuck out. We were we were the weekend detectives. I loved it. We got, like, the plastic surgery scene was iconic. The were-toad, when he was there, was amazing. I loved that. It was probably my favorite scare of the year, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, in a house. Like, it just was rarely happening. But I really loved them. I loved their big toads and jackets.
Yeah.
Sequin jackets. Then those sequin jackets are so iconic. I love the white room. There's so much about it I loved. And I felt very catered to as a fan, especially of that album in that era.
Yeah.
I really hope we get another pop star soon, because I want to feel that emotion again. Because it is such a, like, you have to be a fan to have that feeling, because it's not, the visuals aren't really from the music videos. They're kind of inspired by them, but they're also just kind of inspired by, like, the era. And it's like, if you were there and you were following it, you really had a lot to appreciate.
I would say, yeah, they are inspired by the era. Yeah, I was trying to think if I felt like it was really inspired by the movies that were, like, inspiration for, like, the music videos. And I don't think it really showed those as much.
I see a little bit of Fear and Loathing and, like, and I definitely see a little bit of Eyes Wide Shut.
Well, just, like, the, like, kind of frog.
Yeah, like the frog thing, and there's a couple of, like, bug-headed people in the Savior Tears scene. Mm-hmm. But then that scene also felt very, Eyes Wide Shut, which was not a movie we were told ahead of time. It just was kind of like, oh, wow, there's very Eyes Wide Shut in here. That's cool. Which, I mean, so is the video.
Yeah.
I still feel like I still got, like, the Nightmare on Elm Street vibes from, like, the In Your Eyes moments.
Slightly. Just because you're in, like, a boiler, like, type space, but you don't really get, like, the Texas Chainsaw sort of.
Yeah, that's true. I think the bathroom was very Jacob's Ladder. I thought those plastic surgery girls were very Nip Tuck. I know everyone said Vanity Ball, but I don't think it was a Vanity Ball reference. I think it was like it wasn't. It was like a Goodnight Mommy. I feel like there were enough movie references that I felt like I could see Abel's fingerprints on it.
Okay.
I will say, like, we didn't attend the Hollywood event, but I did watch, like, the POV of the Hollywood version, because that was the one Abel was a lot more involved in. Mm-hmm. And I was just, like, kind of curious to see how things played out. And it does kind of feel like, beat for beat, the same house, just executed clearly with, like, different designers. And I obviously I wasn't there, but, like, it kind of feels split 50-50 of, like, one coast did one scene better than the other, but then the other coast would do the next one slightly better, and then, like, masks might be better in one area, but costumes might be better in another. Like, things like that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that, you know, for this instance, you know, they worked so directly with him and his team that, like, it was very much, like, the same vision, at least, on both coasts, even if it was executed minimally differently. Oh. I don't get it. I don't get it. Number 3 is Descendants of Destruction.
Somehow, some way. Careful not to leave any of your Scream Squad behind as you descend the subway tunnels of a deserted New York. Lurking in the dark are hungry mutants looking to feast on the last remnants of humanity.
I mean, okay, maybe not somehow, some way. Like, it is a good house. It's just...
I don't get the story of the house. Like, I just don't feel like walking through this, you really get a story. It's just like,
I would agree.
Okay, abandoned city and plants.
Now that I have played The Last of Us, the vibe of it resonates a bit more. But I had not played The Last of Us last year. And knowing that The Last of Us is coming, obviously because we're making this video in summer, and the event was like 9 months ago, knowing that, I'm looking back on it a little bit more fondly, but then it's like, I fucking loved Seeds of Extinction. And I was like, I liked Descendants of Destruction.
It was a pretty house, but I didn't really get a lot of scares out of it. It felt kind of sparse with the actors in the house. It was gorgeous. It had some amazing,
that ruined subway car.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Amazing sets. There was so many good things about this house. Hit me correctly. I don't.
Just the post-apocalyptic survivor cannibal shit. I don't care. I need a little bit more from a post-apocalypse. And that's why I loved Seeds of Extinction. And I guess I'm mentioning Seeds of Extinction because this is related to Seeds of Extinction, but is not, I don't know.
Is it?
Yeah, right? Is it or isn't it? We still don't have a clear answer on that, but it seems to be, it is, but it's like, you know, a spin-off prequel set during the fall, maybe.
So where did you have this on your list?
This, overall, it was number 10 out of 17, and out of the houses, it was 7 out of 10.
So for me, I had this overall at number 13, and I had this as my 10th house.
I get it.
It was, like I said, gorgeous, but like
Unload.
Of the things that I really enjoy about a house and like that stick with me, it's gonna be more of the story. It's gonna be more of the actual scares that I get, and I just really wasn't getting that with this house.
I mean, I think we've had the story explained to us, you know, in that like we start out with just the survivors, and then we see a little bit of, you know, mutation, and then by the end they're mushroom monsters. And cool. I wish that there had been mushroom monsters the whole house.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish that you could have kept the exact same sets, and if we had just had more, I guess I just don't really care about a human.
Or I would have liked... No,
that's not even true.
I would have liked, like, the humans were just interacting with humans. It wasn't, like, human and monster. I think that would have been better.
Exactly. If I had just had a little bit more of that, like, element of fantasy, I guess. It's not, like, required, obviously, from a haunted house, but, like, when there is an element of fantasy, and I feel like it's being withheld from me for almost, like, whole experience, and we get to, like, a really cool ending, and it's like, oh, it's over. That's kind of disappointing. But it's such a weird thing because it's like, it's a house that I think is objectively very good. It just didn't really stick with me in any sort of special way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it comes down to, is like, there are parts of it that I obviously still remember with great clarity, however many 9 months it's been since I experienced it. But it is just like, that was it. The scares didn't really stick with me, and the story didn't really stick with me. If I wasn't looking at a list of all of the houses for this year, I wouldn't just like remember it off the top of my head.
I think I was having this conversation with someone else a while back about this house, but I was saying I think what it doesn't give me that Seeds of Extinction did give me was Seeds of Extinction had this sense of absolute alienation and isolation. Like when I would walk into that house, because the characters were, you know, camouflaged into the plants and things, you genuinely had this sort of just real sense of like a post-apocalyptic quietness to it. And that was a really weird, specific emotion that I don't know that any haunted house is ever really going to be able to do again. But I think that was something very special about that house. And, you know, to then do a follow-up or a tangent or a side quest or a sequel or whatever you want to call it, a prequel, whatever, an interquel, and have it just kind of be your run-of-the-mill zombie story, you know, post-apocalyptic thing. It's just not going to hit that hard for me. It's just a hard reality of, like, what the aesthetic is. I just don't really care for the post-apocalypse unless it's really creative.
Yeah.
Just, you know, whatever. It didn't work for me. But if this was your number one house, I would buy that, and I would be like, that's totally fair.
I will say I was shocked that this house did rank as high as it did.
I was also surprised.
Just because, like, there were some other houses I felt like collectively, like, people enjoyed a little bit more. But I mean, looking at the list though, I'm like, I can understand. I can see the vision, you know. The
top two overall, I mean, I'll be honest, I thought Bugs was going to be top 3 with the community.
Yeah, I thought Bugs was going to be higher than it is.
I mean, and I'm saying that as someone who ranked it at like number 5. I fully thought Bugs would be top 3. I thought Descendants would probably be in the top 5. I just, you know, based on the way people talked about it, but it wasn't in the top 5 for me. Is it maybe contributing to why, like, I'm still kind of like
about The Last of Us? Probably.
Maybe. And I'm saying that as someone, like, I'm not done with the second game, but I'm really enjoying the second game a lot. So I'm like...
I started playing the first game.
You did? On what?
I have a PS4.
What?
Austin gave me a PS4.
Oh my god!
He bought the PS5 and gave me his PS4.
Wow.
So
I can loan you the second one when I'm done with it.
Well, that would require me to actually get through a video game. Yeah, I just keep dying very quickly. And
are you playing? I mean, just set it easy.
It is on easy.
Oh well.
So coming in at number 2 is Dead Man's Pier.
In a New England fishing village, undead fishermen emerge from the waves to seek their revenge. You and your Scream Squad may have escaped their hooks in the scare zone. Now they'll reel you in and drag you under. So where was this for you?
So for me, I had this at number 2.
I had this at number 1. This was my favorite house this year.
Aesthetically, this is such a gorgeous house, and it had so much working for it. But for me, the story just isn't as strong as I wanted it to be.
That's fair.
Like, there is a story, but... And then when you listen to the podcast story... It just, like, falls apart, and I'm like, now it really doesn't make sense. That's, like, the one where I'd be like, don't listen to that.
The podcast, I literally told people, don't listen to the podcast, because it's a Blake Braswell story from, like, 2020 that's just kind of set in the world of the scare zone, Dead Man's Wharf. And it clearly inspired the story of the haunted house, but it's also clearly not the story of the haunted house, because the timelines don't make any fucking sense. Yeah. Like, the ghost in the haunted house has clearly been dead for a long time. Because there's a fucking statue of her. And there's a old bar, like a tavern, named for her. Like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's, like, one of my issues with it, but, like, so gorgeous. Everything I wanted it to be kind of like aesthetically, so.
The podcast doesn't affect my love of the house, because the house communicated everything it needed to tell me without the context of the podcast at all. And I was just kind of like gagged by it. Like my first walkthrough of it, you know, I'm like, obviously I noticed the girl with the violin, the statue, but it was like second and third walks where I was like, oh my God, the name of the tavern. Oh my God, the captain is telling us about her, and then like leading up to her, and it's just like, I don't even need to know more. Like, I feel like that's what I liked about it, is that it was so vague, and yet it felt like everything just felt like it was building up to that moment of like this ghost, this woman who was lost at sea, or whatever happened to her. We don't know. Maybe we know, and I'm not in deep enough, I guess. But I don't know, I thought all of that was really beautiful, and then just the sense of depth and scale.
Yes.
With the fucking lighthouse. It's an aesthetic that I have been craving and waiting for. The snow was really beautiful. I actually don't think the house needed the snow. I would have been just fully content with just the same old fishing village aesthetic that the scare zone had, just built out as a house. But the snow was really pretty. It obviously, the scare zone is, I'm just going to be frank with you people, one of my favorite scare zones. Like, I loved that scare zone. And I loved this haunted house. And it scratched that, like, Scooby-Doo itch almost, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, the guy in the fucking the deep sea diver thing. It had that like H.P. Lovecraft almost kind of thing about it. Like, it felt very Shadow over Innsmouth, and I know they weren't fish people, but like it had that kind of vibe to it. It felt like maybe even a little like an eyedropper of BioShock, and like a little bit of Ghost Town, like the haunted house Ghost Town.
I would say also like it had like just like a smidge of like Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, and like Pirates of the Caribbean 2 with like Davy Jones's crew even. Like, I was getting a lot of that, and I loved that like New England look. Some of my favorites, like I know like the Rain Slicker guys, like that's very iconic, or like the diver helmet guys, but like the ones that really like took me and I was like, oh, New England. The guys in the sweaters with the little caps. Mm-hmm. Maybe not New England. I don't know. Like northern fishing village. I was like, okay. Like, I don't know. Something about that. I was like, I'm getting. Like, I see where you're taking me, and I really get it. I'm really landing there. And then just some of these sets, not like just like forgetting about scale and depth, which I feel like we have. I think this was done better than Carnival Graveyard, which I feel like is the other one like people really think about in terms of like you can see the back of the house from the front of the house, and you're just like, whoa, it just keeps going. But also like aside from that, like that boathouse and like the glass ceiling above you.
Yeah.
And then there was the other boathouse where it was like it literally had like a little like, I mean, it wasn't full of water, but like the boat sitting in it as if it were. obviously the tugboat and the water with like the snow over it. It's just like, this was breathtaking. I didn't really need more story. I felt like I was just uncovering just a taste of like some world where something tragic had happened, and you know, I didn't feel like I needed to know more. I just knew that there was tragedy, and like I love that like almost siren kind of quality to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that like
you would.
Yeah, I love that, and I love like I love a ghost story with like, you know, a woman in the window who like fucking died waiting for her man to come home or something like that. Like, it was giving very like the Bride in the Attic in the Haunted Mansion 1.0 before she started chopping heads off, like the old bride. It was giving that, and I was like, you are just checking box after box after box for me. This is probably going to enter my top 10 of all time. Like, I really loved this house.
It was an amazing house. Like, I'm not saying it was a bad house. It was not my top house of the year.
And that's fair. I get that.
How was your sad?
It was sad. It was sad. It was sad, but it was good. It executed sad well. So that brings us to number 1. Top house of the season, top attraction of the season, Universal Monsters Legends Collide.
If you thought 1 Universal monster was scary, how about 3? Better summon your Scream Squad, because you're about to get caught in the middle of an epic battle between the Wolfman, Dracula, and the Mummy, together for the first time ever. Their mission, to find the amulet that will break their curse, and they'll destroy anyone who gets in their way.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that you had this at number 1.
I had this at number 1.
I had it at number 2.
I had this at number 1 because you got that story kind of going into it. You had, like, in the queue, they were giving you, like, audio information about it. And then also the scares. The scares were intense in this house. Like, I think I ended up on the floor at one point.
That triple scare?
Yeah.
Legendary.
Like, on the ground.
Unreal. Some of those scares in this house were fucking incredible.
And it's just like it's almost like they can't miss with the Universal Monster House.
Like,
they're always so good.
I do not understand people who are like, oh, another Monsters house? What do you mean another Monsters house? They're all fucking different.
And great.
And they're great. What are you talking about? If I have one complaint of this house, it's that I don't think it really needed Dracula or the Wolfman. It feels like just a very good mummy house.
It does feel like a mummy house.
But, and I don't think the story is as well executed as The Bride of Frankenstein Lives.
Correct. That's correct.
It's a really, really fun ride. And those reasons are the only reasons it's not my number 1. Literally I was just like, the story is just a little too complicated to be communicated in one walkthrough. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Well, also, with just going through one walkthrough, the ending would change.
Yeah, the ending would also change.
So.
Some of these sets were fucking insane.
It wasn't big, but it felt so large.
It felt humongous. And
I felt like I was in the mummy queue.
Yeah. I don't know what the scene is, but I couldn't easily describe the scene, but there's like a priest and there's a mummy on a slab and there's like a big wall behind him that kind of like disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's like a hole in the ceiling.
Yeah.
And he would like do his scene, and then it does my favorite thing that they do in like some of these like tomb themed houses where the hieroglyphics like light up.
Mm-hmm.
I fucking am such a slut for that. Like, if you put any form of like language on a piece of stone in a haunted house and then it surprise lights up, I'm gonna be like, ah! There was also, with that priest character, there were definitely moments where it's like you had progression, like story progression from scene to scene. So like you would see that priest and then you would see him getting like mauled by like a werewolf like a couple scenes later.
Mm-hmm.
Really liked that.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a good haunted house. Like, it's just a really good haunted house. Good. It's just really good. It picks. I wish that it had worked with. I wish it had picked 2 different monsters other than the Wolfman and Dracula, because they're done a lot. I just feel like those characters get used a lot, where like the Mummy, that's really exciting. Like, we haven't seen the Mummy in a long time. And like, I would have loved to have seen like the Mummy versus the Creature or something. Like, I love the versus concept. You can keep doing that. as far as I'm concerned. Like, Bride of Frankenstein versus Brides of Dracula, amazing concept. The Mummy versus something else, amazing concept. You can keep doing it. I will keep showing up for that.
Mummy versus Wolfman makes sense, though, to me.
I mean, the story they wrote for it works.
Yeah.
About it being like a moon thing.
Yeah.
They just divided in the story. I just, you had to know what that story was.
Yeah.
The Hollywood House. Because it was a two-parter.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch a POV? Because we didn't go to Hollywood last year.
I didn't.
You didn't miss much, from what I can tell.
That's what I had heard, but I didn't watch any POVs.
If you are uninitiated, so this year or last year, the Orlando and Hollywood teams collaborated on a 2-part story where it started in Orlando and the story was in Egypt, and then it picked up in London and Hollywood, and it was in like a shipping facility where all of the artifacts and things that Dracula had collected were. I definitely think that was a dumb decision because I think Hollywood got the much less interesting location.
Also, like, 2 of the creatures are dead at the end of our house, so I know you have to
yeah, you just kind of gotta pretend that didn't happen and like restart.
Which at that point it's like, don't say it's a part.
Yeah, don't say it's a part 2, or don't. And we don't need a winner at the end of the house. I mean, I guess like it's nice to have one as like a special feature.
Or the other creatures don't need to be dead. They could just, this person had the amulet.
The amulet at the end of the house, right? Yeah. So that is a problem. And then the fact, like, watching the video of the Hollywood house, it's like, man, like, you really, I feel like, kind of did yourself dirty with this, like, even if it had been a museum or something, I don't know. Looking at it, I think they made a mistake, not just doing 2 houses set in Egypt. The Egyptian setting was really cool. The tomb setting was really cool. I live for, like, Tomb of the Ancients, Catacombs. I live for a high pulp adventure moment, and we don't get it very often at Halloween Horror Nights, and I loved that. I love The Mummy, and yeah, that was really cool. So I think it's, by the time this episode is airing, I think the next Monster House probably will have been revealed. But let's look ahead. What is a classic Universal Monster House you would like to see in the future? I mean, I said it already, but I really want to see the creature from the Black Lagoon. I'm sort of like, what is taking so long?
I literally watched Creature from the Black Lagoon yesterday.
It's so good.
It's so good. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Creature for me too, because it is just so good.
There's so much potential too,
because it's just like, it could be so camp too.
You could give us all of the camp, and like, I'm fully down. I want time underwater too. Yeah. Like, you don't have to give me any element of realism to it. I don't give a shit. Like, let's go underwater. I don't need some justification. Let's go underwater, and give me more creatures. Maybe more of them surfaced, like Piranha, like the movie Piranha, where they like break out of the. Yeah. Like, I don't give a shit. Give me a reason, and give me a bunch of creature from the Black Lagoon, a bunch of them. And give me camp, give me 50s, give me people on a boat, give me jungle.
Original Jaws.
Yeah, like, give me all of that. And that's definitely what I want. But yeah, let us know down below I don't think the monster train is stopping, so let us know what you would like to see in the future. So that wraps up this year's HHN 31 community review. We are gonna just run through them again really fast, just to kind of hit those marks. Starting at number 17 was The Horrors of Halloween in last place. It was 5th of the scare zones, and it dropped 5 places.
Number 16 was Nightmare Fuel Wildfire, which stayed right where it was on our hype list at number 16.
Then we had Ghoulish at number 15. That rose 2 places, actually. It was the bottom of the hype list, apparently.
Number 14 was Conjure the Dark, which was our 4th scare zone, and it rose 1 spot from the hype list.
Then number 13 was Hellblock Horrors. This was the 10th rated haunted house, and it actually fell 4 places from where it had been on the hype list.
And coming in at number 12 was Scarecrow. It was the 3rd ranked scare zone, and it dropped 1 space.
At number 11 was Sweet Revenge, second place for Scare Zones, and it fell 3 places from the hype list.
And number 10 was Spirits of the Coven, which was house number 9, and it dropped 9 spots.
9
from the hype list.
Yeah, it was number 1 on the hype list.
Number 1.
It had number 1 on the hype list, and it fell to number 10. That's crazy. Number 9 is Halloween, and it was 8th in the house ranking, and it actually rose a spot. It had been ranked at number 10 in the hype list, so it grew a little bit. We had a lot of drops in a row, so we're seeing some growth here.
So number 8 was Graveyard, which was our number 1 rated scare zone, and it rose 6 spots from the hype list.
And then raising another 6 spots is the next one at number 7 is Blumhouse. Blumhouse, I rose 6 whole spots, which I don't understand. Would have dropped it, but cool that you guys liked it.
Number 6 was Chupacabra, which is where it was on our hype list at number 6.
Number 5 was Bugs, and it actually fell a place. It had been at number 4 during the hype season, which is surprising. I genuinely didn't expect it to fall.
And number 4 is The Weeknd, which rose 1 spot from our hype list.
Number 3, top 3, Descendants, which rose 4 places to get to where it is from the hype list.
And number 2 was Pier, which rose 1 spot from the hype list.
And of course, once again, in first place of the houses, first place of the season, top rated attraction of Halloween Horror Nights 31, Legends Collide, rising actually only 1 spot. And yeah, so I thought it was kind of interesting. There were some kind of like big surprises. I think the biggest surprise was Blumhouse, which rose 6 spots from number 13 to number 7. And then the biggest disappointment, it would seem, among the fandom was Spirits of the Coven having dropped 9 spots from number 1 to number 10. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's why we did this. Is it's kind of fun to just see what our expectations, what our imagines dictate what we think is going to come versus what we actually receive and how is it executed and like how does it resolve from like those things? How does it recover? Does it recover? I think it's kind of cool, and it's definitely interesting to kind of just see the data laid out like that. It brings us to the end of our HHN 31 community review, what everyone thought. And overall, I still really liked this year. I liked it a lot better than 30. I think there was a lot of things in place that made me very happy. And there was a lot of houses that I felt extremely strongly about.
Yeah, there is so much to do. It wasn't a bad event. Like, I definitely had fun going to the event this year, and it was better than 30. So hopefully that trend is just going up since COVID, struck.
That's the thing is I still feel like a lot of the weirdness and things like that are like conscious decisions of like how close do we want actors to be to each other. And I had a really great time this year, and I'm really just I'm ready to transition on and move into like the 32 hype era.
Yeah.
We're so ridiculously close at the time of filming this video, and by the time you're watching it, it's probably like about to happen. So we'll see. We want to thank you guys for participating. If you did participate in the community review, if you did participate in the hype review, especially if you participated in both, thank you so much for doing that and for contributing. If you helped out with the photos and videos this year, being part of this presentation and like sharing you guys' experiences, thank you so much for helping with that. But yeah, we're just really thankful to be to have any like amount of community and like discussion and discourse with you guys. Like ultimately, even when we're really like getting really passionate and like heated and shit, like it's a theme park, it's haunted houses, like like it's just something we really enjoy,
Yeah.
And we're happy to have like people to talk about it and share it with. So we're really looking forward to HHN 32 and where that takes us. So on that note, I've been Dakota. You can keep up with me at Cathode Coaster on Twitter, Instagram. I'm not very active on Instagram, but I'm very active on Twitter. You can talk to us down below in the comments.
I've been Lauren. You can find me at LoloFrans on Twitter, Instagram, whatever social media is like taking over
Threads
Twitter.
Or whatever.
Now I try to keep the same username, so we'll see. And then you can keep up with us by ringing the notification bell below.
Push the subscribe button. Keep us in your hearts and prayers and You know. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching the Horror Nights Gauntlet, only on Cathode Coaster.